Hello to my fellow CHIJ classmates. Best wishes and blessings on our 60th birthday bash. Today, I would like to share a personal testimony and the reason for this video. In 1996, I started to be unable to sleep and felt pressure continuously in my forehead. The doctors checked and denied it was anything physical, that it was all in my head. And this spiraled me into selling my restaurant, into coming back to Singapore to be cared for by friends, some good friends, and family. Now, after 2 months of care, I was able to go back to the States and subsequently got my degree in information systems and eventually as a certified security professional. I traveled, I worked for Sony, Hewlett Packard, and the federal government. And all this while, I ignored the continuous pressure in my head. In 2015, almost 20 years later, doctors, through a series of strange coincidences, discovered tumors in my central nervous system. And this explained the pressure I had. The tumors were benign, but a couple were large enough to potentially cause paralysis. And on June the 11th, after being monitored by the Mayo for about 4 years, 3 or more tumors were removed in my brain. During this period, I discovered that the Franciscan nuns were responsible for initiating the founding of the Mayo Clinic. I did a little bit more research and was amazed at what nuns did throughout history that they weren't really being recognized for. Now, closer to home, I recalled my own experience at the Convent of the Holy Infant Jesus. The organizing committee of this birthday bash granted me the opportunity to pay a personal tribute to the CHIJ nuns and their faith and dedication to God. And here's my personal testimony. Now, today, I would like to pay a personal tribute to my beloved Mother Damon and Sister Elizabeth, as well as all the nuns at CHIJ who contributed in our lives. The following is my very grateful testimony. At around 1960, my father, Thomas Correa, was convicted of embezzlement at Robinson's department store, where he was the general manager. The courts in Singapore deported him back to the US. But before he left, he beat my mother, who ended up in the hospital, and then he proceeded to take me to CHIJ to be cared for by the nuns. I was told by the sisters and my family that I was an inconsolable baby at this time during this traumatic period. So, what Mother Damon and Sister Elizabeth decided to do was look after me themselves instead of in the orphanage. They housed me in their own quarters on top of the Caldwell house. I subsequently lived at the CHIJ orphanage till I was 8 years old, and I continued to go to school at CHIJ till I graduated secondary school. This meant that my life was touched and guided by these nuns from the age of 1 to 17. In the 16 years at CHIJ, I remember these moments. Sister Joseph and Sister Maria were our main caregivers. Now, in one of the pictures here, I don't recall which name belonged to which face, but I recall one of them is in the black and white pictures here. They were our main caregivers. They were always cheerful, patient, loved all of us. Um, and as you can tell, I really loved my time at the orphanage. And come to think back on it, it was amazing how they managed with so many children and still kept their cool. Sister Elizabeth and Mother Damon visited me quite often when I was at the orphanage. Um, we had a play one time, a Cinderella play, which I think that the nuns try to put on every year. And myself, Annie Ng, Maria Lee, I can still remember their names because I have the picture. Watching us, the nuns watching us, and nothing but approval in their eyes, just like in the other black and white. I remembered Sister Elizabeth um, caring for me in the infirmary that was by the swing set at near the kindergarten when I had the measles at 6. Uh, and I remembered my mom would go visit Mother Damon quite often for help, whether it be guidance or financial. And she always had time to. She always had time to see her um, at the Rotunda Caldwell office. And I recall whenever I was in the grounds and I saw Sister Elizabeth, she always had candy in her pocket, as if she was expecting, or maybe she ate most of those candy, but I always had a candy from her. And I always felt very loved by Sister Elizabeth. Uh, and I also recall Mother Damon always making a point um, to communicate with my father about my progress because she would ask me questions and then she's writing it down in a letter. And then the reason why why my father supported us financially was actually because she put the fear of God in him and ensured to make him financially responsible for us. Um, Both Mother and Sister Elizabeth, continued to check on me even in secondary school. And then some of these pictures you see here were taken by them. Mostly females, but sometimes male babies were dropped off at the front gate, I recalled. And I think normally at night because I would get up in the morning and there'll be a new baby. If they were males, they would be cared for till they were ready for Boys Town. I recalled asking, "Where's this one little boy baby?" And they would say, "Oh, he went to Boys Town." Now, the orphanage also took children who were sick or disabled and of all nationalities or religion. And I recalled a little baby that we had, not us, the orphans, but the orphanage had cared for, who was disabled and did die, the little baby, and his parents attending the funeral at the orphanage. I also recalled there were two orphanages, one for the 6 and under, and the other for the 7 to 21. There were 4 large rooms for the bedrooms for the 6 and under, for infants, for babies, toddlers, and the 3 to 6 year old. Our bath was a community bath, a community dining hall, and we had a lot of fun in the inside and outside playground, which was near the tuck shop and the music room, the piano room. Now there was another orphanage on top of the Chinese school. The Chinese school part that was attached to the kindergarten. I wonder if some of you remember our kindergarten. And they were for the older orphan girls who were about 7 to 21 years old. Now, these older girls would sometimes come over to help with the babies when they weren't in school. Sometimes the nuns would ask us younger kids, like the 5-year-olds or the 6-year-olds, if we can help with feeding the babies early in the morning, like at 5 or 6 o'clock. There was always a nun with each group of children, even at night. And I recalled the food in the dining hall was about basically the same every day. It was nutritious. I mean, we had eggs, we had fish, but it was about the same every day. But we had food. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and in between snacks. And sometimes some companies would donate special food that we don't normally have, like milk that was frozen in little packets, and we just loved those. In each orphanage, the older of the kids are taught to help the younger ones, like with their restroom activities or their bathing. In the evening, all of us would change into, after we took a bath, we would change into our pajamas, and in a row, the nun in charge would march us over to the kindergarten playground. I don't know if some of you remember that, with the swing set and all that. And we would play there till about 7-ish, 7:30, and then we'd go to bed. In the mornings, the nuns normally went to mass about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, really early to start their day. The 7 to 21-year-old orphans or the orphanage girls were expected to also attend that mass with the nuns at that CHIJ chapel. And then we would get changed when we were about in the 7 to 21-year-olds. We would get changed, we eat breakfast, and then we go to school. We have witnessed the heroic work of nuns in clinics, orphanages, soup kitchens, and many of these Christian women had started hospitals, like the renowned Mayo Clinic, and they have worked as educators and humanitarian workers, like at CHIJ, and in many troubled spots throughout the world, and often under very dangerous warlike conditions. Even though I shared my personal experience by recalling my childhood at CHIJ, one must imagine really the magnitude of work performed by these nuns at CHIJ. Not only did they take in orphans, lots and lots of unwanted girls through the years, but they also established and taught and ran two girls' school, Chinese and English, from kindergarten to primary, secondary, and pre-university. These nuns also helped establish other convents in Singapore and Malaysia. They don't seem to seek recognition. They just work quietly behind the scenes. They're humble and they do not seek worldly glory. I would imagine that these are Christ convicted nuns, and they're all over the world, and they seem to want to personify Christ, and they seem to overcome obstacles to perform compassionate, Christ like works. They provided the opportunities to all races, and we, as CHIJ girls, from way back in the 1900s to the present, we did receive and reap the benefits of their work and dedication to Christ. And if you think about it, in the olden days, girls weren't valued fairly, but the nuns, they valued us because Christ valued us. Regretfully, I have only visited once with Sisters Elizabeth and Damon after I went back to the States. The worldly life took over, but the good news is because of the sisters and CHIJ, I did thrive in this physical world with a wonderful husband, four great, wonderful children, and six grandchildren, as well as because of my CHIJ education. I also acquired a successful worldly career. Needless to say, I am more grateful to the CHIJ sisters for essentially saving me and for their selfless care for me. The care and education provided to us girls was and is the greatest in Singapore, bar none. Because of my personal trials, I have learned that the legacy one leaves should and needs to start with the spiritual. So, more importantly, the sisters left a spiritual legacy of compassion, servitude, love, forgiveness, commitment, prayer, gentleness, patience, self control, and humbleness. From the Bible, I know that even though the world doesn't always recognize the sisters' Christian emulation of Christ's character, God does. In Isaiah 55 8 to 9, it says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, and neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." As a consequence, the sisters' heavenly glory, I believe, will be forever, and their legacy of CHIJ spirit will live on in us. Enjoy and have a great 60th birthday bash, girls.